At the edge of the last great ice age, a mystery was set in stone. In the rolling hills of southeastern Anatolia, where the wind speaks only to the grass, the earth gives up a secret, a geometry that should not exist. Here, stone circles emerge from the soil, their pillars carved and arranged with the calm confidence of a master plan. This is Göbekli Tepe. The timeline it presents is staggering. Its oldest layers date back to roughly 9,600 BCE, an era before the written word, before the first metal was forged, before the accepted story of civilization says humanity was capable of such monumental ambition. Yet here they stand, colossal pillars, many weighing several tons, hewn from limestone quarries and dragged across the landscape. They are carved into a distinct T-shape, smoothed and set into perfect rings. In the heart of several enclosures, two larger pillars, smaller stones, forms a petrified audience, frozen in a ritual that ended millennia ago. And then one notices the carvings. With hands of astonishing skill, these ancient artisans etched a world of predators and prey into the stone. Foxes stalk across the surfaces, wild boars charge, snakes and scorpions coil, while vultures, with their stark, powerful forms, command a solemn presence. This is not idle decoration. In a world without script, images are a vessel for memory, for instruction, for belief. The first question is immediate and profound. Who orchestrated this? The quarrying, shaping, and raising of these megaliths required immense coordination. It demanded specialized tools, sophisticated planning, and a large, sustained labor force. And that labor force required food, a surplus that challenges our entire understanding of the hunter-gatherer societies believed to have roamed this land. Göbekli Tepe does not just challenge the timeline, it fractures it. The second question is even more unsettling. Why was it built? The earliest layers reveal no signs of a city, no dense warren of domestic houses. This was not a place of daily life. Perform rites of immense importance. The very architecture pulls the body inward, toward the central pillars, focusing attention on a moment that transcended mere survival. Archaeology offers grounded theories. Perhaps it was a grand ceremonial hub, a place that helped bind scattered clans together, forging alliances that would eventually give rise to settled agriculture. Or perhaps the carvings of vultures and other scavengers point to complex mortuary rituals, a place where the dead were prepared for their journey into the next world, their flesh given back to the sky. But the greatest anomaly, the act that elevates this mystery to something resembling a deliberate concealment, is how it was found. The entire complex was intentionally buried. Ton by ton, generation after generation, its creators filled the circles with debris, covering their sacred work under a man-made hill. This was no slow decay of time, no violent conquest. It was a careful, methodical entombment. They did not abandon their temple, they put it to sleep. Why would a people bury their most magnificent creation? Was it an act of final reverence, to protect it from the profane world? Or was it to hide it, to seal away a power or a knowledge they believed was too dangerous to leave exposed? The stones offer no answer. They hold their silence, leaving us to wonder at the dawn of human consciousness and the possibility that our story is not one of a slow, steady climb, but of forgotten peaks and deliberate descents into shadow. The sheer audacity of the leap remains unexplained. For here, carved from the Anatolian bedrock, is a complexity that should not exist, a challenge to the very timeline of human endeavor. But the mystery deepens, for this was not a singular, inexplicable flash of genius. Göbekli Tepe was not alone. Across the sun-scorched plains of the Taştepeler region, other hills whisper the same story. Nearby, Karahantepe reveals a gallery of surreal figures and phallic pillars, a different chapter in the same sacred text. More than a dozen other sites, most still sleeping beneath the earth, echo the same architectural DNA, the same symbolic vocabulary. This discovery transforms a solitary miracle into a sprawling culture, a tradition, a network of belief etched across a sacred landscape. The question is no longer what happened at this one hill, but how vast was this world, and how much of it remains buried, waiting to rewrite our history all over again. The stones themselves seem to speak in a coded language. A chilling menagerie of predators and scavengers writhes across their surfaces. Serpents, scorpions, snarling foxes, and vultures with immense wingspans. Why this obsession with dangerous creatures? Why the relentless repetition, the sheer intensity of the carvings? It is as if a generation was issuing a comma. Some look to the heavens for an answer. They ask if these circles of stone were terrestrial maps of the celestial sphere, immense instruments for tracking the slow dance of the seasons and the stars. Were these rings aligned to the solstices, the equinoxes, the key turning points of the year? While claims of precise star maps remain fiercely debated, for it is all too easy to impose patterns upon the silent past, the fundamental question is sound. Why anchor meaning in immovable, monumental pillars, a task requiring the labor of generations, unless you were attempting to preserve something far larger than a single human lifetime? To understand the motive, we must place the monument inside its time. The world 12,000 years ago was not a gentle dawn. It was a violent, convulsive era of change. The great ice sheets of the last glacial maximum were in a chaotic retreat. Seas rose dramatically, swallowing coastlines and drowning entire landscapes. Climates swung from one extreme to another, and within this period of global warming, the planet was suddenly plunged back into a dramatic cold snap, a period geologists call the Younger Dryas. For more than 1,000 years, conditions turned harsh, arid, and unforgiving before the world warmed once more. The precise causes are argued: a comet impact, a shift in ocean currents, but the instability is not. If your world was dissolving around you, if the very ground beneath your feet was in flux, what would you build to defy that change? Here, the hard line of evidence softens, and the realm of possibility begins. This is not proof, but a profound and unsettling question. What if Göbekli Tepe is not the beginning of civilization, but its aftermath, an echo of something much older? Imagine a world now lost beneath the waves, ancient coastlines teeming with life that today lie under hundreds of feet of water in the Persian Gulf or the Mediterranean Sea. Picture sophisticated maritime peoples living in settlements built largely from wood, reed, and fiber, materials that would leave almost no archaeological trace. They possess boats, trade networks, and a deep knowledge of natural cycles, passed down not in stone, but in story and song. Then the world changes. The water rises relentlessly. Storms of unimaginable ferocity batter the shores. Entire territories vanish in a single lifetime. The survivors are forced inland, refugees from a drowned world. They carry with them the memory of how to organize, how to build, how to read the sky. And when they choose a new home, a new sacred center, they choose to build with eternity in mind. They choose stone, because stone outlasts the flood. Stone outlasts disaster. In this scenario, the circles on the hill are not a first draft, they are a restart beacon. A library of stone designed to gather the scattered remnants of a people, to encode their deepest knowledge, and to ensure that what was lost would never be truly forgotten. And what if the animals are not random symbols of the wild, but a complex, forgotten lexicon? What if they represent the clans of the survivors, or astronomical constellations that marked the seasons of their former life? Or perhaps they are the key players in a ritual drama, a story of survival and rebirth played out within the sacred rings. The T-shaped pillars, tigyas, some bearing carvings of arms, hands, and belts. If these are beings, who are they? Ancestors standing guard? Deities born of a cataclysm? Or perhaps they are the Watchers, the silent, stone-faced survivors of that earlier, broken world. When the established timeline feels so profoundly wrong, the human imagination rushes to fill the void. Some reach for mythic frameworks, for the Anunnaki of Sumerian lore, or for ancient astronauts, interpreting these figures as literal visitors from beyond, who delivered knowledge to a primitive humanity. While mainstream research firmly rejects such a leap, for there is no material evidence of extraterrestrial contact in these hills, the impulse itself is revealing. It is an admission that Göbekli Tepe feels alien to its own time. But perhaps there is a simpler, yet no less thrilling possibility. The outsiders, the teachers, were not from the stars. They were human. They were specialists, masters of a sacred and practical knowledge, the inheritors of a tradition that had been shattered. They were the architects of memory, using stone and symbol to build a bridge across a chasm of forgotten time, ensuring that the essence of their world would endure. They built not for themselves, but for the future, a future they could barely imagine, a future that has only now, after 12 millennia of silence, begun to listen. They were masters of a world we can barely imagine, navigators who read the ocean's breath, organizers who marshaled societies without a single written word, star watchers who charted the cosmic clock with an unnerving precision. To tea. And after the great catastrophes, when the world broke, their memory fractured into legend. Legend, in time, hardened into the shape of gods. But this is not merely a story of forgotten ancestors. We have not yet reached the part that beats with the heart of a thriller. Because Göbekli Tepe was not simply abandoned, it was buried, intentionally. Enclosure after sacred enclosure was methodically filled in, sealed under tons of earth and debris. This was no random collapse, no slow surrender to decay. It was a deliberate entombment, as if a people chose to shut their world down and hide it from the sky. Why would a civilization bury its greatest work? Perhaps the reason was practical. An old sanctuary retired with reverence as beliefs shifted and new holy sites rose to prominence. But the act itself is heavy with unspoken meaning. To bury something is to declare its importance. It also says, "This is not for now." And so the stones compel us to ask the question, were they preserving a sacred place for a distant future, or were they covering something up? If these builders could organize monuments of this complexity and then choose to meticulously seal them away, they were thinking in arcs of time that defy our modern imagination. Beyond the span of a season, beyond the reign of a leader, beyond the boundary of a single lifetime. They were engineers of memory, forging a message in stone. Here lies the unsettling thought. If we have uncovered only a fraction of this sprawling complex, then its true message might still be asleep beneath the hill, exactly where its creators wanted it to be. The final questative steps forward, but the evidence of our first attempt to rebuild after a global reset? If that is even remotely possible, then where else might the past hide its evidence? Evidence that does not rot or burn or wash away with the tides of time. For the warm soil of Turkey is not the only vault on this planet. There is another archive, one that does not just bury history, but freezes it. We turn now to Antarctica. Here, on the frozen frontier of our world, an empire of ice holds its own mysteries. While its vast white expanses appear barren, a sterile silence stretching to the horizon, recent discoveries have begun to unveil a realm teeming with ancient secrets. From the ghostly remnants of primeval forests locked deep beneath the ice sheet, to whispers of maps drawn long before known expeditions ever charted these shores, the continent challenges our understanding of Earth's deep history. Amid tales of meteorites from other worlds and the fierce controversy surrounding impossible pyramidal structures, we are reminded that even in the most desolate corners of our planet, there remain stories waiting to be told. The Earth itself becomes the ultimate archive, its silent continents holding chapters of a human story far older and stranger than we have ever dared to believe.